We are in Chichen Itza at the temple of Kukulkan, which is the feathered serpent sun god of the Mayan culture, which originally was an Aztec but then adopted over to Mayan. And this specific temple is not just a pyramid as we find in other civilizations around the world. Every continent you'll find pyramids. But this, because the Mayans were such specific timekeepers, is a pyramid that also is utilized specifically for the keeping of the calendars. So at the Temple of Chichen Itza, there are 4 sets of steps on each side of the pyramid. Each set of steps has 91 steps. 4 times 91 equates to 364. And the top portion of the pyramid, which is the capstone, which equates to 365. What's important about this is that this predates the Gregorian calendar by almost 1,000 years, which later adopted 365 days in the year 1582 by Pope Gregory. So the Mayan calendar consists of 3 separate calendars that are used simultaneously. You have the long count, then you have the divine calendar, and then the civil calendar. The divine and the civil calendar identify days, and the long count identifies years. 3 calendars work together as a series, for the most part, of interlocking wheels of different sizes, each one making a different time span. The significance of December 12, 2012 ties into the Mayan long count calendar, which represent 5,126 years, which was not pointing to the end of civilization, but more so the end of an age, shifting out of the period of Pisces into the age of Aquarius from an astrological standpoint. 8 years later, from 2012 to then 2020, we then see the Great Reset triggered by what we now identify as the coronavirus, 8 being the number of new beginnings. So this is specifically dealing with a period of shifting.
Now is a historical moment, a time, not only to fight severe virus, but to shape the system.
We have a unique but rapidly shrinking window of opportunity to learn lessons and reset ourselves on a more sustainable path. It is an opportunity we have never had before and may never have again. So we must use all the levers we have at our disposal, knowing that each and every one of us has a vital role to play.
Now is the time to think what history would say about this crisis. And now is the time for all of us to define our own role. What is it that would make it so that history would look at this crisis as the great opportunity for reset?
The Great Reset is a welcome recognition that this human tragedy must be a wake-up call. It is imperative that we reimagine, rebuild, redesign, reinvigorate, and rebalance our world.
This one is dedicated to Kukulkan, which is a feather serpent god. It's a temple where every March 21st, and September 22nd, we will see the representation from the main lord, Kukulkan, represented as a feather serpent god, comes down, and the profile of the North Balustrade, see, represented with 7 light isosceles triangles that are coming down. And this natural spectacle starts at 4:30 p.m. when the sun is getting ready to set on the west side.
Let's tie this all together. So to understand the utilization of serpents in ancient culture, we have to go back and get a historical background as to what serpents represented, what they meant. Serpents were signs of fertility in different cultures. It also was a representation of creative life force. A snake basically that shed its skin through the process of sloughing was a symbol of rebirth, transformation, and also immortality, as well as healing. The symbol of the Ouroboros snake, which basically is the symbol of the snake eating its own tail in a circle, was also associated with sun worship, and rebirth, renewal, eternity, restoration, and eternal life. The snake has been used throughout history in various cultures, various forms of iconography, such as with Egypt, with the pharaoh's crown and headdress, with the snake representing divinity and immortality. Another form of iconography that utilized the snake is Asclepius' staff, which is the Greek representation of medicine. This was symbolized by a single snake going up a staff with two wings at the top, also a representation of the feathered serpent. Another form of iconography is Hermes' staff, which is known as the Caduceus staff, having two serpents going up a staff with wings at the top, also a representation of the feathered serpent. Hermes' staff is also a representation of currency, as he is the primary deity that relates to commerce. He also represents negotiation and trickery. The iconography of the dollar sign is a representation of a snake going up a pole. It's formed individually as two snakes combined in the same direction. This is tied specifically with Hermes' staff. This shows how pervasive the snake is in even modern culture, to where it's still utilized in daily transactions amongst many human beings all over the world. Okay, so now let's tie all of this together to show how the snake was utilized in historical architecture and is still being utilized in modern architecture, both spiritual, dating back from the 8th century, into our current day. In order to do this, we have to look at the centralized location of the world's most popular religion, Christianity, and the Vatican. Because even until this day, snake worship is still being carried out, but it's being done undercover and in disguise. Pay attention.
But my first lead that something was strange was this window, and I said, that looks like an eye. It looks like a serpent's eye. So I dug a little deeper, and when I saw the audience hall from the back, where the back audience was seated, it really did take my breath away, since what was revealed was this right here. That is a giant, massive reptilian face shaped into the direct architecture. Everything from the slits in the eyes to the scales to the fangs, there was no mistake about it. But what's behind this hinted symbolism? And what can we see or glean if we dig deeper? Well, number 4, look at where the Pope is seated. We see him here from the back of the hall, that he's in fact seated in the mouth of the serpent or reptilian. In the very mouth. This is symbolic of the Pope being the voice of the serpent, in fact speaking the serpent's words to the audience. This might well shake your faith, that is if you're a Catholic, which I was. I actually went to Catholic school myself and was an altar boy. But here you can see it in plain view. Clear symbolism, clear evidence that something here is extremely wrong. This image hasn't been photoshopped. This is real. This is built right into the architecture that was designed by those within the Pope's inner sanctum. But there is more symbolism. For this though, we have to go outside. Number 3. Do you see anything strange here? You're looking at the hall itself. Do you see anything weird? Well, if you look carefully, it looks like the head of a giant snake. Can you see it now? In fact, it's almost unmistakable. You can see the snake's muzzle at the front and you can see its eye. It just looks like a snake. To me, this is yet more connective symbolism that what's going on inside matches the outside. Because since here we can see serpentine architecture with ease. Number 2, let's head back inside and look at what the Pope himself sees. If the Pope is seated where he is, what does he see? Well, he sees a giant serpent with eyes once again. The audience is symbolic of almost the serpent's meal, and the Pope is not preaching to the audience under this symbolism, but the giant god-like reptilian creature himself. Why? Because this is what the Pope sees. Can you imagine that when they were designing this, that they designed this all by mistake? That this is some kind of high anomaly? No, because they spent literally years on the designs. They definitely would have known what the Pope would have seen from where he was actually speaking. Also, what the audience was seeing. So this is very strange, and it raises some serious questions. What is going on in the hall?
Well, to understand what is going on in the hall, which happens to be Pope John Paul VI hall, we have to understand what is elevated behind the leader, which represents the head of the Christian faith. As is stated, true power always lies behind the throne. What they will tell you is that this is the resurrected Jesus after a nuclear holocaust. Didn't know that they had nuclear bombs 2,000 years ago, but this is how they justify the depiction of, if you evaluate much closer, is not just a man, but is actually representation of a reptilian figure in the form of a man with a snake head coming out of a human head, where also, if you look further down by the waist, the body, the feet, is actually coming out of a skin, meaning then that there is a shedding process that's taking place in this depiction. Here you can clearly see the snake head protruding out of the right side with the eyes and the mouth. And if you look closely down the middle, you'll see a line going down the center of the head, as to say that it's half man, half snake. So this disfiguration could not be caused by a nuclear explosion if in the event we're talking about a risen deity that can no longer be affected by anything of a human ability. So this clearly is a intentional distortion of a figure as to not make it as clear as to what it is, but when you zoom in and you see it, you know exactly what it is. Here you can clearly see the shedding of the skin, which is a common regenerative practice of snakes, which in turn is why they were worshipped historically, because the slothing process of a snake essentially was a sign of resurrection, rebirth, renewal. We can never understand where we're going until we understand where we've been. We can never understand why things are being done until we understand how the enemy thinks. Understanding their association with ancient culture brings into greater understanding the reason why certain iconographies and certain things have to be done within specific periods of time in order to carry out fulfillment of specific objectives. And this has been the trap that the kingdom has been caught in. Many of those who have good intentions have been led astray by lies of those who were really keeping cult practices intertwined in Christian religious systems to which many people are completely ignorant of. This is just part one of a series that's going to blow your mind. Keep on watching. This is Prophet GT, and I'm on assignment.